reaction to the events ongoing in California. Senator Rand Paul tweeting this late yesterday. My thoughts and prayers are with the victims, families, and brave first responders during this unspeakable tragedy. A few minutes ago, I talked with Senator Rand Paul out of Kentucky for his reaction. Senator, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Bill.
Help us make sense of this.
Well, you know, I think when we have these tragedies, I think the first thing that we ought to think about is the victims, and that they were people. They were someone's brother, someone's sister, someone's mother. And I guess what gets me is that so often we immediately go and jump to, the president at least jumps and wants to make this political, when in reality this is a human tragedy first.
I mentioned the tweet you sent last evening in the introduction. The New York Daily News is slamming people like you for talking about thoughts and prayers. This is their cover. God won't fix this. In addition, Chris Murphy, Democrat out of Connecticut, he's 3 years removed from the Newtown massacre, as you remember. Your thoughts should be about steps to take to stop this carnage. Your prayers should be for forgiveness if you do nothing again. What would you say to either or both?
Well, you know, the sad thing about those people who want to mock religion and want to mock prayer is that we don't even yet know all about this. It turns out that, you know, both of these terrorists or murderers are Muslim. Do we know that they're radical Islamists? Do we know where they came from, how they got here? Until we have an investigation of this, for someone to mock someone who sincerely believes that prayer is something that we do in times of need. The other thing is that some of the victims were actually tweeting out, pray for us, you know, pray for our safety. And if this were a member of my family, that's what I would be doing, praying for their safety, knowing that I physically couldn't remove them from harm. But for people to mock religion, to mock prayer, and then to act as if there's some law that's going to fix this, you know, there may well be, but it may not be a gun control law. It may well be a law that says we shouldn't admit people to this country from certain parts of the world where they're intent on killing us. And so until we know exactly what happened here, for people to be snide, snotty, and, you know, arrogant about the fact that they believe prayer doesn't influence our lives, I'm offended by it and quite frankly shocked by that kind of attitude.
You mentioned the president. He was doing an interview in progress with CBS when the news broke. This was his initial reaction when a lot of the facts were not known.
The one thing we do know is that we have a pattern now of mass shootings in this country that has no parallel anywhere else in the world. And there's some steps we could take, not to eliminate every one of these mass shootings, but to improve the odds that they don't happen as frequently.
What did you think of that, Senator?
Well, the whole story sort of above and beyond the tragedy amazes me. I was watching the news this morning as I got up to come to work, and I was watching one of the competing channels. The competing channel only talking about gun control and did not mention that the attackers were Islamic or that they were loaded with bombs and dozens of guns and weapons as if it were a terrorist attack. And so it wasn't even being mentioned. All that's being talked about is gun control, and yet they skip over important facts that oftentimes the guns have been registered or purchased legally, and that California has some of the strictest gun control laws in the whole country. So I think it's a big mistake for the president. It's a big mistake for liberals in general to mock people of religion and to mock people who believe in prayer. But I think it's also a big mistake to immediately politicize something where when the facts come out, I think there are going to be some important policy decisions. But I try not to immediately jump to that because I don't want to cheapen the lives of those who actually died and are suffering from this attack.
Entirely understood. One of those policy decisions has been debated on the Republican side, and that has to do with surveillance. Would you, if this plays out as a sleeper cell in California, would you reconsider your position on surveillance on behalf of the NSA and others to find out before it happens? like this?
I'm all for surveillance. I want more surveillance of suspects and suspected terrorists. I'm just not for mass surveillance of everybody. And I think we actually do a better job keeping us safe if we actually do targeted surveillance. But the other thing we need to do is we need to know who's coming to visit our country and who wants to move here. And we have to have stricter rules on this. Today I introduced it earlier in the week, and I will introduce it today onto the Budget Reconciliation Act. I will introduce a bill that says 34 countries that have radical Islamist movements, we're going to stop admitting people for a while until we know who these people are. Whether they're refugee, student, or visitor, we need to know who they are if they want to come to our country, and they need to be adequately screened. And if we're not screening these people, then that's a big mistake, and that's our biggest danger. Our biggest danger is not surveilling all of Americans. Our biggest danger is admitting people to the country who want to do us harm.
Thank you, Senator. Rand Paul from the Hill today.